evening. Welcome to Happy Families with Principal Lisa on Pearl 102 FM. I'm live with you tonight and I've got two fantastic guests waiting to join me. First up, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Catherine from Lighthouse Arabia, and then I'm going to be talking to Kate Shake from Soul Space Yoga. Thank you so much for joining me. It's fantastic to see you all and hear you this evening. I'm just waiting for Dr. Catherine to come in and join us. Thank you so much, everybody. It's really great to see you. I hope you've had a great day. And we're just waiting for Dr. Catherine to pop in. We're going to be talking about teenagers and supporting teenagers during the COVID crisis. We'll touch on brain development for teenagers, where they are in their development and how we can support them during a tricky time. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the show. You're listening to Happy Families with Principal Lisa. We're just waiting for Dr. Catherine. Hey, rocking. We're just waiting for Dr. Catherine to join us from Lighthouse Arabia. And we're going to be talking about supporting teenagers during COVID, how we can support them in a variety of family life challenges. We'll just wait for Dr. Catherine to pop in. I'll just see if we can bring her in now. Here she is. Fantastic. She's just coming through. Thank you so much. So, hello.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome, Dr. Catherine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. My first time on Pearl FM.
Well, welcome to Pearl FM. This is Happy Families. And I just hope everybody's feeling happy this evening. So we've got a few people just joining us. Everybody's coming in and welcoming us. So Catherine, can you tell us a little bit about you and your work here in Dubai?
Of course. So my name is Dr. Catherine Frogley, as you've just said, and I'm a clinical psychologist. And I work at the Lighthouse Arabia, which is a wellness and mental health centre in central Dubai. And I work with a wide variety of individuals. Predominantly, most of my work is with children, adolescents, and obviously their families, but I do also work with adults too on a range of different mental health challenges, difficulties, but also sometimes for people who just want to understand themselves a little bit better, who just want to really build their self-awareness. There isn't necessarily a mental health difficulty per se. So a wide variety of different things. I'm also one of the education leads at the Lighthouse Arabia, which means that I head up, alongside some other colleagues, our child and adolescent mental health services. We support schools and counsellors within those schools as much as possible. So we have a regular Connecting Counsellors group that happens on a bi-weekly basis where we offer supervision and we offer topics and services around that, and we try as much as possible to be a support to the schools in Dubai as much as we can, and maybe a little bit also with the nurseries, less so, but we want to build our kind of support for nursery staff too.
Well, you've helped us a lot at Kangaroo Kids recently in my nursery, because we've been speaking every week on Instagram and to the families about a variety of challenges that families might have faced, particularly through the very difficult period that families were facing during COVID. So I would imagine through a global pandemic, you were very busy, Catherine.
We've been very busy, but it's been lovely to offer a different range of services as well. So obviously that initial, when everything closed down in Dubai, we had to really quickly adapt to doing everything online. And that was, it felt like it happened overnight. I think it did actually. I think we were just 1 minute in the clinic and the next minute online. But through COVID, we've also set up so many free support groups for a variety of different people, not just families actually, for people who've experienced job loss, for healthcare workers who are on the front lines right now trying to deal with, you know, the trauma of what's going on in the community right now, as well as mothers and those who are pregnant. So we've been quick and trying to support as many people as we can. But yes, it's been a busy time, but a good time at the same.
Well, on behalf of the whole of Dubai, I would like to thank you for everybody, you know, the way that you've helped so many people. You've done so many lives to help everyone. Now, while I'm talking to Dr. Catherine, if there's anybody listening or viewing who needs some help and support, or you have any questions, just drop a question in and we'll get to you. Okay, so let's get on to talk about our topic today, which is teenagers and wellness and mental health during COVID. What can you tell us about your work with teenagers?
First of all, I will say that I love working with teenagers. I love them. I think if we can, they're hard work sometimes, so that's not to say that the parents out there who've got teenagers and who are struggling with them at the moment, it's not to say that they're not hard work. But I love thinking about, you know, all the transitions and the thinking that goes on during those adolescent years. Is just for me, it's just a joy to work with, and it's one of my favorite topics to think about, all of the changes physically but also psychologically that teenagers are facing. And of course right now they are one of the populations that, to be honest, we've been quite worried about, because it's for them that the COVID-19 situation has brought with it its own kind of set of difficulties. So for example, the teenage developmental tasks, if you like, is to build your independence, is to find out who you are, what your identity is, to form a relationship or a peer group outside of the family unit. And so if you think about that and you think about what's going on in the COVID-19 situation, there's so many things that they're not able to fulfill and do at this time because of the coronavirus pandemic. So they're not able to be connected to their peer group. So they're losing that support and they're losing that opportunity to really build those connections, which is a task that they have to do at this time. They're also missing out on those defining moments in your teenage years. So things like prom, graduation, sports events or theatre productions or school trips. These are really important moments in a young person's life that really help them to feel, you know, who they are, to figure out what do they like about themselves, or what feels good to them, or who am I good at this, am I not? And they're really missing out on some of those experiences right now. And you know, we might see them as, oh, you know, they didn't get to play in that football tournament, but it's actually a big deal to this.
It is. In actual fact, I just want to say hello to Shaima. Now, Shaima is very actively answering you and talking to you as you're speaking. And Shaima's 18. And we've got a family tuning in tonight and asking questions who've got 3 teenagers. So we just want to give a special welcome to them and thank them for listening in. So I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you, and please do comment. As I'm talking, I'm not reading, so Lisa, you'll have to let me know what I'm missing. But I'd really love to answer any questions that you have, to think about how we can support our teens, because they deserve it and they need it right now.
Yes, they do.
It's a tricky time for them. I wonder if it's helpful for us, often when I'm working with parents and families who are wanting to support their teenagers, it's often helpful for us to understand the challenges that teenagers are going through, the physical and psychological changes and transitions that are happening for a teenager. So I wonder if it's helpful for me to talk a little bit about that, because I think sometimes we don't have that knowledge or understanding.
And I think we talk a lot about development, for brain development, learning development, all kinds of development for children who are young. But what differences are there for teenagers and brain development?
Yeah. So you're right. We talk a lot about those, especially those first 3 to 5 years of life, where we know there is so much rapid brain development happening during those years. And so we're very careful and conscious of those changes that are happening at that time. And of course, that is a very, the brain is developing very quickly at that time. And we see by age 9, the structure and the building blocks of the brain are set. But the brain is still very plastic for young children in particular. Now, the last part of our brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex, which is this front part of our brain.
Yes.
And it's one of our unique qualities as a human being, because it enables us to think and plan in the future, to be able to predict outcomes based on our experiences, to be able to problem solve, to be able to slow down and put the brakes on our emotions when they come up. And it's a really crucial part of our development, but this is still, it's the job of adolescents to really build this part of the brain. And so we have to remind ourselves that this part of the brain is not fully formed for teenagers and is actually under construction. There is a rapid rate of development that's happening during this time until 24, 25 years of age. And it's interesting to think that it's not until that age, and yet we often call someone of 18 years of age an adult. And of course they are, but we have to also recognize that their brain is not fully formed until much later.
And does that impact their emotional regulation, do you think, Catherine?
Definitely. So there's actually been some research that I find fascinating, where they have scanned the brains of adults and the teenagers who are going through that adolescent period, and they've asked them to look at different faces showing or depicting different emotions, or to talk through different emotional situations that they've been through. And when you look at the brain scans between adults and teenagers, what you'll see is what lights up in the adult's brain is the prefrontal cortex, and what lights up in the adolescent's brain is the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for our feelings. So it's evidence to let us know that for teens, they are thinking with their feelings, if you like. They are very much emotion dominant at this age. And we can also, firstly, it's the brain structure, but there are also hormonal changes that are happening at this time that also bring those emotions to the surface and make it a more intense situation for teens when they're experiencing those emotions. And it also means that they're more likely to misinterpret or misunderstand emotional cues. So they may be more likely to get quite cross with you because they're reading your face as, oh, she's angry at me, or she's fed up with me, and I'm feeling all those emotions about what I'm seeing. And it may be that they're more likely to misinterpret you or misread a situation because they are kind of emotion dominant at this stage of their life.
Well, Shima's saying that during these difficult times, she feels that a lot of teenagers may be suffering. And also somebody else is saying that they believe that teenagers are really emotionally intelligent, but that sometimes they might not be the easiest to motivate to do something outside of what they want to do, such as maybe screen time or on the phones. So now that we understand perhaps why teenagers might be having a difficult time and what might need a different approach, how can we support them at this difficult time?
Well, first of all, I would say that part of what's difficult for teenagers in terms of coming off the phone or doing things that they don't want to do, part of that is their executive functioning is still being constructed. So it's not fully formed. And that's not to say that it's not there in some way, and it's not to say that we can't support them to build that. Actually, this is the perfect time to build those neural pathways, because their brain is also supercharged with lots of neurons. It's also going through a process of strengthening pathways that have been very useful and reducing or getting rid of the pathways that are not so helpful. So that's happening as well. But also, one of the interesting things that is happening in kind of a hormonal sense is that teenagers' sense of risk is going to be different. And the reason for that is their dopamine levels are very different to an adult.
Okay.
So they require more of a rush, if you like. They are primed to seek out novelty, to seek out things that are perhaps a little bit more risky, because they are partly psychologically, they are turning into a young adult, and evolutionary perspective is telling them that they need to build new experiences, they need to go out there and be an adult in some way, and build, you know, their knowledge and their problem solving skills, but also their dopamine levels are a little bit lower at this time. So partly what we're seeing in that question around coming off the screen or doing things they don't want to do, partly that's around their executive functioning, so their brain development. They're not able to see the consequences of staying on the phone for a long time, ruining their sleep or whatever it is that's worrying you. Partly it's because maybe the risk involved feels it's worth the risk, because it gives them that dopamine hit that they're primed to go out and seek. And lastly, if it's about the kind of the phone or the social media, right now it might be a very important way for them to connect to their other peers, their peer group. If they're not able to go out right now, which many teenagers, you know, because of COVID-19 haven't been able to, then maybe this is a really important thing for them, bigger than what else is on offer. And that's because psychologically teenagers are just gently pulling slightly away from the family and building their own peer network. And that is developmentally appropriate and necessary. It's not to say that they should completely separate. They still need their family, they still need their parents, but they may be gently pulling away. And the last
we've got a few questions and responses coming in, Dr. Catherine. Some of our teenagers in the call are talking about how they want to be able to help their friends. Some of their friends aren't meeting people and are staying in and have gone a bit silent. What advice would you give for our teenagers in the call who are worried about their friends?
Yeah. First of all, I think that's lovely that you care about your friends.
Me too.
And you really want to support them, and I think that's a really, it says so much about who you are, that you want to care for your friends. I think that's lovely, and that, you know, they will feel that. And I think what you can do to provide support for those people who perhaps are worrying you is offering them a space for you to hear them, to listen, to understand what they're going through, if they're able to talk about it. If they're not able to talk about it, you can just gently perhaps notice what you've observed. So you might say, you know, I've seen that you've been a little bit quiet in the groups recently. It's making me wonder if you're doing okay. I'm here for you if you want to talk to me. Just letting them know that someone is thinking of them, holding them in mind, and has space for them is a really important thing that you can give to someone. Of course, if you're really worried, if you know that there is something dangerous or that person is at risk, then I would urge you to contact their parents if they are under the age of 21 and you really are concerned. I would say try and contact someone, an adult who can support you with that. But holding space for people is a really, really important thing that you can give to people. And actually, when we are back in the clinic, we offer a teen-to-teen mental health training package that is internationally recognized, and it's lovely. And it's really useful for those of you who are teens, who really want to be able to help and support your friends, or just be aware of what are the early signs of someone struggling with their mental health and how can I support them. And yeah, we sadly, because we're not in the clinic, we haven't been able to run that for a while, but
Yeah,
once we
but
are back.
there's been a lot of conversation happening through the live today, asking how can we support our friends, but also parents saying, well, how can we support our teenagers? But one specific area that has, I've just received a question here. Salama's asking, what piece of advice would you give to teenagers that are struggling with their online learning? So I think the advice is, what advice would you give to a teenager? So I think it's not the parent, it's more how can we help the teenager who's struggling?
Yeah, first of all, please know that you are not alone. That those teenagers who are struggling, and perhaps as a parent who's supporting that teenager, just letting them know that I'm sure, or I know that this is very difficult for lots of students, lots of teenagers across the world right now, because it's a very unusual situation to take all of your work at school and do it from your own home whilst there's a global pandemic on. So it's very normal that this is something that people are struggling with. A lot of the teens that I work with, this has been a big topic that we come back to, and we problem solve, and we kind of support with, because it is very difficult. I think the piece of advice that I would give is to firstly acknowledge and be kind to yourself that this is difficult and this is a very unique situation that you're going through. And of course, at times it's going to be hard. I think time management can be really helpful for home learning. So having some kind of routine or structure. And I know that that's hard right now, because often people tell me, I really don't want a routine or a structure. But when you're feeling anxious or worried, having routine is the antidote to anxiety. It's really helpful.
I agree. I
really
agree.
is.
And I used to work with year 10s and 11s back in the UK, and every year I used to give a talk to the parents about how to support the children through exam period, and I used to talk about routine being a great idea. Now, I'm not suggesting routine is a great idea for teenagers because I want to kind of be boring or control you, but actually routine sets you free, because you can say, well, it is my break time now.
Yeah.
You know, back off, mum or dad, because this is my break time. Do you remember we agreed that I would work then and then I would get my time off to be with my friends? Yeah. Well, it's time with my friends now. So that's why I like a routine that you sort out with a family, because I think it sets the student, the teenager free.
It does. And I think it's good to involve or give that task to the teenager. Let them set their schedule, maybe with your support if you need to, but I think it's important that teen owns the schedule, and within that it must include plenty of breaks where you get up, you leave the environment that you're in. I think a lot of teens at the moment are working from their bedroom, and that can be very hard, because your bedroom is your safe place. It's the place where you relax. It's the place where you hang out with your friends, but now it's also your school. And so getting up and out of that bedroom is going to be important, but also trying, if you can, and it might not always be possible, but having a workstation in the room that is very separate from the other parts of your room, where you relax or you listen to music or you talk to your friends, or whatever you do to kind of chill out, needs to be separate as much as possible in that room. The other thing that I've found to be helpful is to every night to kind of write down maybe a couple of things, or 5 to 6 things that you need to do the next day, and prioritize which ones have to be done first. And it's simple. It's a really simple idea, but I cannot tell you how effective that's been for some of my teens. Just to sit down. And sometimes we come up with a magic number of like, right, we're going to have 6 things tomorrow that you have to do. And you write them down, you order them in number of priority, and then the next day you start with the one that you've said is the priority, and you move through. And maybe you won't get them all done, but the ones that are most important will get done.
Now, I have to say, so I'm a nursery school principal. I run a busy school, and I have a lot of things on my to-do list. So I prioritize A, B, or C. Can I let you into a secret? I never do the C's. Never.
I never do
And
the
life
C's.
goes on. So I would encourage
And
our
it's fun.
teenagers that maybe the C doesn't need to be done, you know.
Yeah.
As long as you're in the A's and the B's, you'll be okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing as well that, that's important, that I think a lot of my teens have not been very good with their sleep. And I understand that, because
Okay.
your whole world has been turned upside down, your whole schedule has been thrown out, you're making your own schedule maybe. Teenagers naturally tend to shift their circadian rhythm by a few hours later. That's what happens as a teenager. Yes. But what that means is that they're not getting, and teenagers need 9 to 10 hours of sleep, which is a lot more than I used to think they needed. I thought, adults need about 7, 8. I thought teenagers needed the same. They don't, they need more. So a lot of my teens are just really not prioritizing their sleep right now. And let me tell you that everything feels better with sleep. Everything. Your emotions, your productivity, your ability to do your work, like everything. Your skin, your health, your energy levels, like everything is better with good sleep. And I know for parents out there, it's very hard perhaps to talk to teens about this, because perhaps it feels like you're nagging them, or you're telling them that they've got to go to bed when they don't want to, because they want to enjoy their evening. But if you do it in the right way, if you help them to perhaps do an experiment and see how they feel when they get the sleep that they need, and how they feel when they don't get the sleep that they need, it might help them to see that this is actually something I can give myself that makes me feel so much better and enables me to have a better productivity the next day, or a better, just mentally just feel a lot calmer.
Yes, and sleep does help with your skin. And a lot of teenagers worrying about their skin is a real thing, So drinking water and getting plenty of sleep does help your skin, and you just feel a little bit better and more able to cope with the world. So we've got sleep, writing a priority list, reaching out to friends and letting them know that you're here to support them. Shima's calling it beauty sleep. What other tips could we give to our teens tuning in, and the families who are perhaps looking for tips to support their teenagers at home?
Yeah, I think for maybe let's keep with the teens, and then I'll come back to the parents, because it might be slightly different. For the teens, what have I said? So, thinking about building in a routine, even though it feels like, oh, I don't really want a routine, but having some kind of structure to your day is really important. Yes. And within that structure, I would try and organize what we call ACE. So you want something that gives you a sense of achievement, something where you connect with people, and something that is enjoyable, that is just enjoyable to do. It's not necessarily productive. So you want a healthy dose of each of those things. And for teens in particular, being connected to your peer group is going to be really important, and to your family. But I know for a lot of teens at the moment, their connection to their peer group is something that they're really struggling with right now.
Yeah.
I would also, so sleep is something that's very important, staying connected. I would, as much as possible, try and set limits around social media use. And I know, again, that this is a really hard one for teens to do, because it's naturally something that they're drawn to. It's where their friends are. Again, if we go back to that dopamine hit, social media gives a lot of those dopamine rewards. But I think being careful, there's so much research out there, time and time again, that says that teens are much more likely to feel lonely, to compare themselves unfavorably to people on social media, to feel depressed, to feel anxious. We know the effect of social media, and I understand that it is something that you might enjoy using, it's how you connect to people, but try and be aware and monitor how much you're using it. And you might need the support of your parents as well to help you to see how much of this am I using, but try and set limits around it and build in other activities that give you a sense of enjoyment. So it could be if you're creative, doing something that's creative, or if you're someone who likes to be sporty or move, go do some exercise, but just trying to have time where you're away from social media, you're away from the phone or from a device is really important. In actual fact, there's research that says that when the iPhone was introduced in 2007, and if I could show you these graphs, it would blow your mind. But in 2007, what you see of teens who go out with their friends and who perhaps date in person, the numbers go rapidly down in 2007. And the other thing that goes rapidly up is loneliness. So there's something about technology and how we're such heavy users of technology and social media right now that I think this is a very important thing that you can give to yourself.
Well, it might impact you in another way. And in fact, Rhoda, 93, has messaged and asked for some help here. She says that she's had insomnia for the last 4 days and she's feeling very tired and exhausted. Please, can you help with any recommendations? The reason I brought that question up at that point was because we were talking about screen time, and I know in my work with families is that screen time before bed does impact sleep. Could you help Rhoda, please, Dr. Catherine?
Of course, Rhoda, I can definitely help. Again, sleep is something that I am more and more finding to be such an important part of any piece of work that I do. If sleep is not right, if sleep is not optimal, everything else is going to feel a lot more difficult in your life. So I understand, Rhoda, and it's horrible to hear that you've had 4 days of insomnia and not being able to sleep.
Yeah.
So the pieces of advice I would have is, firstly, our brains are, especially when it comes to sleep, really like associations. So it likes to build in these clear associations, these consistencies that happen every night to cue the brain in that this is time. We need to start winding down, slowing down to get ready for sleep. Sometimes we expect our brain to go from absorbing lots of information, particularly if we're looking at a phone or we're reading emails, the blue light in those screens stops our melatonin, the hormone that is the darkness hormone that starts getting us ready to get sleepy and get ready for bed. So the blue light doesn't help, but also just absorbing all that information is making our brain very, very active. So we need to give the brain time to wind down, to slow down, ready to go to sleep. So we need to do that about an hour before we actually want to be asleep. So we need to turn down the lights, make sure that our bedroom is around 19 degrees, nice and cold. Maybe we would have a hot shower because that mimics what happens in our body. Our body heats up naturally when we are ready to go to sleep. We want to put away our phones. We want to perhaps wear the same pajamas just so that our brain is being cued into that association of, okay, we're in these pajamas, this means that we're getting ready for bed. And we want to do something that's relaxing and calming, so maybe reading, maybe journaling, maybe listening to music, whatever helps you to feel nice and calm is going to be a nice way to get the body ready to go to sleep.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the body, the circadian rhythm, the kind of sleep-wake cycle, again, is very, we want to get that very set. So what we can do to help that is to go to bed at exactly or thereabouts pretty much the same time every night and wake up at the same time every morning. And I know that that sometimes, especially when you've not slept well, it's very hard to wake up early when you feel like you've slept badly the night before, and it's really hard to stay up and go to bed at 10 when you've slept really badly the night before as well. But trust me, from somebody who really struggled with sleep and used to really find sleep very difficult, this is what I know works for me, and it works for a lot of my clients too, is going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, really building in a cycle so that your body just knows when it needs to go to sleep, when it needs to wake up.
Yeah.
And having a really good sleep hygiene, so as I said, a cold bedroom, if you can, having a hot shower before you go to bed, making sure that your bedroom is dark, there's not any lights that kind of keep you awake. You start to dim the lights early on in the evening. You eat earlier in the evening. You're not eating right before you go to bed. You limit your caffeine. I think that the latest really that we want to be drinking caffeine is about midday, which I know can be very hard for people, but caffeine has such a long half-life that it's still in our body several hours after we've drunk it.
That's true. That's true. But Dr. Catherine, I can't tell you how fantastic it's been to have you on Pearl FM, because obviously a lot of our viewers and listeners are children and teenagers. So this has been perfect tonight. And I really hope that you'll come back soon, because lots of people have been sending love hearts, have been popping up, and you know, there's been
I can see them, they're lovely.
Yeah, and so thank you so much. But we've actually got another guest waiting to come on. We've got a lovely lady called Kate Shake, who has a very inspiring story, and she's going to talk to us about kind of mindful eating and looking after ourselves in relation to conscious, you know, family meals and eating together, and how we can work on that. Now, I know, Shaima, that you've sent a question, and Shaima just wanted us to talk about that you could use the time during COVID-19 to improve yourself. So, Kate, I know you're there. If you could just hold on one moment so that Dr. Catherine can answer Shaima's question. It was about, you know, how can we use this time to improve ourselves?
Yes. Well, that's a lovely question, first of all, Shaima.
Yes,
and I think it's really nice to think, how can we use this time? And I think that's a lovely way to view it. And that's not to say that there might be moments where you don't feel like being productive and you need to just be kind to yourself and give yourself a break. But where possible, I think it's lovely to think, how can I use this time? What can I do to build on my strengths? And that could be anything. So I know people who within the work that they're doing with me have chosen to go away and do mindfulness courses, as an example, because they want to use this time. They're out of school or college and they want to be able to really understand mindfulness. So that's something that they've gone away and done. But for others, it's been learning about equine therapy. It's a, you know, not necessarily therapy, but kind of they have a passion for horses.
Yes.
And that's been what they have really enjoyed learning about during this time. So I think it's a lovely question to ask, and I think having that understanding of
Yes,
what makes me passionate, what am I passionate about, what might I want to focus on, because there's so many courses, online courses.
Yes.
The world is, you know, really great at giving us the opportunity to learn.
Shaima's actually made a very interesting point, and I know that you'll feel this way as well, is that we are in a global pandemic and we don't have to be productive. So I think that that's a valid point. I also want to say hello to Trisha and Khalifa. So hello, good evening. But I'm afraid we're going to have to say goodbye to Dr. Catherine and bring in Kate Shake and talk about conscious mindful eating. Again, another hot topic at the moment, considering we're at home a great deal of the time. And Kate's got a really great story to share with you. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll just say goodbye to Dr. Catherine. She's coming back. When are you coming back, Dr. Catherine?
I think in maybe 2 weeks I'll be back.
Okay.
So we'll come back to some of those questions.
I think we want to talk about our Shaima saying
Bye, Shaima. I love Shaima.
Yes. So look, in 2 weeks' time, let's come back and maybe, you know, maybe we can give a bit more support to our teenagers and young people that listen to Pearl FM. All right.
That would be great.
So thank you so much.
You.
And
I'll see you later.
We'll bring you in now. Everybody's loved it. Great feedback.
Oh,
Take care.
Thank you, guys. I'll be back.
Take care, Catherine. See you soon. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you so much to everybody. Oh, isn't Dr. Catherine just lovely? And Shaima's a first-year psychology student, so it's fantastic that we have been able to give back to the community and inspire each other. And as a first year psychology student, Shima, it's been great to have your input and your ideas. And I'd like to thank Rhoda as well for being so open and honest about her own situation. I'm just going to bring in Soul Space, Kate Shake. Stay with us, everybody. She's coming in now. Dr. Catherine is awesome. I've done a lot of lives with her and she's been helping many families across Dubai. There you are. Hello, Kate. Welcome to Happy Families with Principal Lisa. Big kisses to you. Thank you so much.
I've missed your face.
Oh, it's really lovely to see you. Now, this is your first time on Happy Families. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and your story and what you do here in Dubai. Shima's saying hello to you.
Hi, Shima. How are you? Hi, everybody. Yeah, so my name is Kate. I am a co-founder of Soul Space Dubai. We're a whole being wellness company, so we look after the mind, the body, and the spirit. And I look after the body. So I'm a yoga teacher for all ages. I teach everybody from babies all the way up to 99, 100, and 105 years, the whole family. And I'm also a nutritionist, and I work with a concept called mindful eating.
Okay.
I'm not, you know, when you think about a nutritionist or a dietitian or anything, think a lot about, you know, weight loss and dieting and all these things. So mindful eating is very different in a way that, you know, it changes the relationship to food and it turns food from your enemy into your friend, which is why I think it's such an important topic to talk about. And yeah, I have 2 little babies and I do a lot of yoga with them.
Yes, but what brought you to the passion that you have of making a difference to people with reminding them of the benefits of mindful eating?
Absolutely. So when I was a teenager, the age of about 12, I was bulimic, so I was dealing with an eating disorder. I was depressed. So I had what they call winter depression. So during, you know, I grew up in Germany. So in winter, you know, during the winter months, you know, it's really interesting. Dr. Catherine was just talking about this actually. You know, as teenagers, when you were in your room and all you do is in your room and your sleep rhythm is completely off and, you know,
Yes.
productive and lazy. And in Germany, when the days are so short and it's so cold, and I used to literally live in my room and not get out of my room, and I would sleep the whole day and then not sleep at night, sort of in depression as well, and I would get panic attacks. And for a long time, you know, I was really, really unwell. And you know, when you have an eating disorder, then you know that relationship you have with food is just completely, it's you know, your eating disorder is your friend, but it's also your enemy at the same time, right? You're very lonely, but it's also your friend that you have there. But when you learn about mindful eating, which is what I, you know, learned on my way to recovery, you're learning to change that relationship and seeing it from something, you know, that is bad, or you fuel your anxiety and your mental disorder, to something that actually fuels you as a person into somebody that's thriving, and that's actually, you know, something really nourishing for you as well.
But so, you know, people listening who, you know, who there might be people in the call listening who do struggle with eating disorder, with an eating disorder, but there also might be people who, over the time of COVID, of being indoors, perhaps have developed a bit more of an attachment to food than they normally would do. How can they make that shift?
So first of all, if you know you do think that you have an eating disorder, you have a problem, then you definitely need to speak to a professional. That can be really daunting. It might be worth, you know, speaking to your friends, to somebody you trust first, and they can help you with that. I'm sure, you know, Dr. Catherine at Lighthouse Arabia, they can also help you.
And all the team there, yeah.
But if you just feel that maybe your relationship has become a little bit unhealthy, not necessarily disordered, but, you know, you feel yourself always comfort for food, and you don't feel like, oh, it's getting out of hand, but you feel like you just said, you know, you have that a little bit of more of an attachment to food, then it's really important to look at the reasons why. And obviously right now we all know why. You know, we're in a pandemic, yes. Right? It's like unprecedented times, and it's all over the place, and we're all over the place right now. And I think the problem is that when we lose control over something that is very normal to us. So we're going to school every day, we're having a routine and everything, and we have control over what we do, where we go, who we see, who we talk to. When we lose that, then we're obviously trying to fill that void. And
Yes.
that's very, very easy to fill with food. So the idea in that is to find other areas or other activities that will fill that void rather than. So behind mindful eating is that it gives you power. So you're taking a step back. Mindfulness means that you're being in the present moment without worrying about the past or the future. So being in that present moment, and you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to the fridge, and the trick is one moment, one step to think about, why do I want to eat right now? Is it an emotional reason, for example? So is it because I'm upset? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I smelled somebody maybe having a barbecue and now I really fancy some food? Am I really hungry? And when you take that moment back to just step back, it gives you power to then make a decision. And to make a decision to say, maybe I don't want to feel that void with food. Maybe let me go and see what else I can. Maybe let me call my friend. Maybe, let me that puzzle that I've been wanting to start for the longest time. Or maybe let me, do some yoga, which would be my preferred. Anything that you feel might fill that emotional void. And it's all about taking that second. It's a nanosecond where you think, why do I want to eat? And then you make a choice.
And what is the acronym for it? Is it BLAST? I can't remember that you had. I remember the last time I spoke to you, you ask yourself these 5 things. Am I bored?
Right.
Lonely?
Scale. So it's a hunger scale. So what you can do is so you can either look at it from that way. Is it because, it's an emotional reason? Boredom, upset, loneliness, or is it external reasons? So smelling food, seeing food, is the unhealthy food, for example, really visible, or is there something else that might be more visible for me than rather than food? Or is it actual hunger? And when you're thinking about, actual hunger, then you can assess your hunger on a hunger scale. And the scale goes from 1 to 10. And if you're hungry on sort of a 1 to 3, you want to go away and you want to have a glass of water, and you're probably thinking about an emotional or an external factor here. Whereas if you're on a scale from 4 to 7, that is when you want to eat something. So say it's dinner time is still about 2 hours away, but you're on a 4, 5, you want to eat something, because what you really, really want to avoid is getting to 7, 8, 9, 10. You never want to get over a 7, because then you're totally hungry. Then you're just going to gulp down anything that you can find, mostly processed foods, because that's the quickest that you will get to at that point and the quickest that you will be eating. And then you will gulp down your food without really being able to digest it, without being able to use the saliva, the enzymes in the saliva to really digest your food and actually let it travel down. Exactly. Then you binge, Shaima. Exactly. When you get into 8, 9, then you binge. So in order to avoid that, you'd rather have, that snack, fine, but a good snack. So an apple is not going to sustain you for 2 hours, but what's going to sustain you for 2 hours is maybe some peanut butter and an apple, or maybe some, an avocado with some nuts. So more,
I think avocado is I talk about this a lot with families. Is that avocado is a great snack for small children and for all of us, because it's a really nice healthy fat.
Yes, it is, absolutely. And it's something that, so what happens when it eats, it has a lot of fiber. What happens when we eat foods like a little bit more complex? So complex means that you have a mix from carbs, fats, and proteins, that you don't just eat a sugar or anything like that, that you have something that will sustain you. Because what happens, for example, when we eat a cookie, our blood sugar goes like this and then goes down like boom. And at the end of it, you're tired, you want to eat something else, you want to have, all this stuff. Whereas if we eat good foods, like, avocados with the nuts, what happens is that your blood sugar goes like this, and it sustains you for a long time, and you don't have which is why these sort of foods are really good for you.
Now, I can't pronounce her name, but we've got Fuma here. She's asking, how can I get my teenage boy to slow down when eating and be more mindful, Kate?
Yes. Interesting, especially with teenagers, I think, because teenagers have a hard time being mindful. They're always thinking about the next thing, you know, they're always there. Number one reasons we tend to eat fast is that we are not paying attention to our food. So phones away, TV off, no distraction on the table. What helps really is to have family meals so that the whole family eats together. Conversation. Keep these conversations positive. Part of my reason for developing an eating disorder was that our meal times were always the time where we would discuss family issues. Whereas if you have, you know, a nice conversation, you will immediately slow down, you will take your time, you will really think about it. So phones away, TV away, family meal time. Chewing. So it's really, really important that we chew a lot of times, and that's really hard, I think, when you know, gulping down your food. It's really, really important to chew the food. So you could ask him to, you know, to just make sure that he chews every single bite at 50, 20 times and see how that goes. You could challenge him, you know, you could make it a challenge. Teenagers like challenges, right? So why don't you make it a challenge and just say, hey, let's see how long it can take you. The other thing is to, you know, not obsessively talk about the food, but before you're starting, you're going to remind them to look at what is in the food, what can they taste, which colors, what can they see. And obviously the number one thing, which is hard to get teenagers to do, is to get them involved in the preparation of food. Because if they've been involved in the preparation of the food, even if it's going to the supermarket, even if it's doing some things, then it really helps them appreciate it more, and they will sit down and actually think about it. And then you can introduce lots of exercises like, okay, now we cook the food, which colors of which ingredients, what consistency has changed from when we prepared the food, does it look different, which colors have mixed, can you still see all the ingredients? And that way you will learn to slow down.
Yeah, okay. And so how, you know, how do maybe we, when we go shopping, can we think about our mindful eating? You know, when we're choosing what foods to eat, is there a good time to go shopping? What do you think?
Yeah, don't go shopping when you're hungry. Has the same effect as eating when you're too hungry. And what sort of our rule is in our house is that we shop the rainbow. So you want to make sure that you have fruit and vegetables in your shopping carts with all the colors. And as many foods in there that are as close as possible to their natural states. So rather than, you know, okay, sometimes we don't have, might not be the best example, but let's use avocado again. Rather than buying the guacamole, you don't know what sugar has gone in or what has gone in, you know,
salt or...
Exactly. You'd rather buy that avocado, and it takes you 2 minutes to make you know, to make your guacamole at home. Yes, and you can really choose what goes into. So it's close to the natural state as possible, as many colors as possible, and yeah, not processed foods. So, and you want to have the majority of your shopping cart be vegetables, mostly vegetables.
Is there a difference between mindful eating and conscious eating? There's two interchangeable terms. What is the difference? Oh, Malek's saying hi, hello.
Hi. I think it's very similar. I think it's probably pretty much the same when you think about it in the end. Yeah. I think
it's about being present.
It's about being present, and it is about, you know, that relationship, you know, that you're building with the food. So it's not only about being present, but it's about what you see the food to be and what you learn the food to be and what you allow the food to be. And to allow it to be that fuel rather than to be just something that you have to.
Now, Shima's asked us, she said that she doesn't eat quickly, but she tends to watch things. Now, I'm thinking she probably means like a screen or something, an iPad. Is that mindful eating, Kate?
The issue with that is, so Shima, I'm going to ask you, if you watch TV, how many times have you eaten a whole bag of crisps while watching TV? And then ask yourself, if you didn't have the TV or the phone, would you ever eat a whole bag of crisps while actually paying attention? And that is what the issue is with the two, right? Yeah, you eat it a
Yeah.
lot.
She's Shima's laughing. Yeah, probably
But
not.
imagine eating a whole bag of crisps without any distractions around you. You wouldn't, right? The other thing is also that we tend to eat more when we watch TV and faster. It takes our body 20 minutes to realize that we're full. So it takes 20 minutes to get from here all the way into our belly and to say that we're full. So if we're watching TV, we cannot listen to our body's signal to say, I'm full. So you're more likely to eat more, to overeat, to go for that second portion, because you're also eating your first portion a lot faster than you would otherwise. And that way we will overeat and we will eat too fast as well. When you're eating fast, you're going to get bloated because you're not chewing properly. Digestion starts in the mouth. With the enzymes in the mouth, that's why we need to chew, you know? So we need to chew so that the enzymes in the saliva can do their work, because that's where we start to digest food. And if we don't do that, and if we don't take our time to let the food go through the different stages of the digestive system, we get bloated, we get irritated, we can't sleep, we get constipation, all these sort of things. So that's why it's really important to eat slowly and pay attention to what, and that's why screens are a real distraction. I'm guilty of it. I don't always, you know, sometimes I'm guilty of it too. We all are, right?
Yeah. Do you think there's a link with mindful eating and yoga, and what link do you think that is? How do the two link together?
Yeah, I think what happens when, you know, you start looking after your body, you will want to do the best for your body. And yoga really helps you do that. So yoga really gets you into loving your body first of all, because it's, you know, it's a non-competitive practice and it's an internal practice for that first and foremost. So when you're doing yoga,
Yes.
most of the work is being done, like, so it does incredible body. The main work is being done inside you. And when you start to love yourself and to love your body and love it for what it can do, you want to do that in other areas of life as well, which is, you know, definitely eating, because you want to look at your body in a way that you want to use food as something that nourishes you and vitalizes you, and that is something that will, you know, be good for you because you love yourself and you love your body, so you want to do good for yourself.
And by doing yoga, obviously that is connecting with yourself, breathing and being present and being mindful. Therefore, by doing that, do you think you'd be building up the skills to then apply that to eating?
Yes, for sure. So mindfulness is what I always say to, you know, teach kids: become a mindfulness detective. See mindfulness.
Okay.
See mindful opportunities for mindfulness. You should see them everywhere. You can see them everywhere. You can see them on your way to school. You can see them everywhere. But if you're practicing yoga, for example, and you're practicing mindful eating, then it will become much easier to take these opportunities in other areas of your life, especially when it comes to your relationships, etc. Because you're getting used to, you know, your mind programs itself to look for these things and to think about, you know, your five senses wherever you are.
Now, in the last few minutes before we close the show, could you tell us about what you do over at Soul Space Dubai and how people can get in touch with you, and what would they expect? We've got 2 minutes left on the show. Tell us about your work at Soul Space, Kate.
Yeah, so there's 3 of us at Soul Space. Like I said, you know, we're looking after the mind, the body, and the spirit, because what we believe is that in order to really be happy, your whole being person, you can't just do exercise. You can't just, you know, look after your spirituality. You need to bring a balance to all these 3 areas of your life. So we work a lot with mindfulness, meditation, energy, yoga. Then my colleague is a positive psychology coach, and the other one is a Reiki master. And we work really in our individual fields, but we do a lot of work together. So we work, for example, with universities or schools, with a lot of parents, where we go and do goal setting exercises. And what we do is we draw from all of our areas of expertise. So we would go, for example, into a university and we would take elements from psychology, plus meditation elements, plus desk yoga exercises, all these kind of things, in order to help students be more focused and be more successful. And then we work with parents as well to say, how can they help their children? So it's called Nourish Your Child in Mind, Body and Spirit. So how can I help my child excel as a person rather than just helping them with homework, for example? So how can I really help them be the best person?
Yeah. Hello to Itsy Bitsy Craftsy. Well, it's been great to have you join us. So hello to everybody, but I'm afraid we've come to the end of Happy Families with Principal Lisa on Pearl. I believe this show will run on Pearl Radio tomorrow night. We're now taking the show back onto the radio as well. So, but I'll still be doing the lives with you. So